I have a different cup today, Fiona.
I have a different cup and a different location.
Fantastic. Excellent. So yeah, we've got different cups. Well, I've got a different cup because it's a coffee break, and you're in a different location because you're at work.
Exactly, yes. And it's actually a different classroom. We haven't been in this one yet. So I've got a better
Um,
view from here. You don't. You're looking
no,
behind.
I've got my usual wall with my usual wall behind me, but never mind.
I sit with this. You
Um,
might be able to see reflected on the door. There's lots of cyclists go past. So you'd have constant cyclists going behind me if I turned the other way.
yeah, I did think that it was people behind you.
No, the towpath, the Thames River is, I mean, I'm sitting looking at a boat. The Thames River is just there. The towpath is between the river and me. That's the only thing between the river and me. And so you're getting the reflection in the window.
Fantastic. Very good, very good. Excellent. So today's topic is memory.
Okay.
And so a few weeks ago, I can't remember why, I can't remember why I shared it, but one of our Friday tips was
Hmm.
around episodic memory and kind of picking up an object from
Mm.
your house and, thinking in as much detail as you can about where it came from and everything like that. So we mentioned in the book that there are three types of memory,
Yeah.
and I've got them here because I wouldn't remember them. So procedural, declarative, and episodic.
Yes.
So first of all,
Experiential. They do
oh,
have other names as well, but those are the three that we've gone for. Yeah.
so first of all, could you give us a very quick, what does each of those types of memory do?
Procedural is the how to do things memory. Like when we're little and we can't write yet, and we have to learn how to hold the pencil because we start off with a crayon like this, making lines, and then we have to learn physically how to hold the pencil, and then we have to. I remember my teacher. Here's an example of memory. I remember being taught how to do a small A.
Oh,
We had to imagine a fairy leaving her house and she went around a pond. She was taking a letter to the post box. Post box was sort of south of her house. She went round the pond. When she gets to the post box, she realizes she's left the letter at home. So she runs the quick way back to get it and then comes back down. And that's how we learned to, yeah, draw the A, as it was, etc. Anyway, but with time, we could, you know, at my age, it's fair to say now I don't need to remember fairies and post boxes every time I want to write an A. Or learning to drive is another example. When you first learn to drive, you have to, how do we do it? How do we do it? Or learning in Spain to make a tortilla, which is not as easy as it looks, all this kind of thing, or like making a roux, and all these things anyway, that initially cleaning your teeth
mhm.
require memorization. So it's memory of how to do things, process, procedural. Yeah. Declarative is the memory of facts. What's the capital of Czech Republic? What's the capital of Canada? What's the capital of Australia? All the trick ones. Um, how many kilometers are there in a mile? These sort of things, facts that we memorize, when we have to do the periodic table at school, amo, amas, amat, amis, amatis, amant, that kind of thing. So that's the declarative memory. And then the third one is the episodic, which is the memory of experiences and events and how they felt and what happened. So it's the one that we use when we're telling anecdotes, which we
Mhm.
then embroider over the bits of it that are actually remembered. That's the episodic. Or um yeah, when you're thinking of, your song or whatever, when you play your song and you think, oh yeah, I remember. Or if anybody's watching, if you remember the first dance you ever had with somebody, what was the song that was playing? That's the episodic. It's got more to do with the sensorial experience. I remember mine. It was "How Deep Is Your Love." Was the song. Could have been the Bee Gees. I don't know.
Yeah. Yep.
I remember the song.
Nice. And so in terms of the language classroom, Do we use procedural memory so much?
Yeah, we use procedural and declarative a lot. Teachers will tend to. We use procedural every time we say open your books, right? We're going to do a gap fill. You know,
True.
it's the first time you did a gap fill, you had to explain what they do. Yeah, there's a lot of procedural just in everyday life, should we say, and that does occupy part of the brain functioning. So, you
And
know,
but so is it a good thing to do quite routine tasks because then that takes off like the cognitive load if you know what's coming,
yeah,
if
we
you've
bet you
done it
have.
1,000 times before.
Yes and no. The thing with memory as well is, and attention is, so as well as three different types of memory, there's like three levels of memory as well, or processing memory. You've got attention is the first, and then you've got the kind of the shallow processing, which would be equivalent of say the lots, and then the hots, the higher order. So you've got the deeper processing. Pardon me, and attention is often gained by contrast or change and through the senses and things like color. But it's about, contrast. So if you do something different from the usual, that's going to trigger the attention. And then that starts the process of memorization much more easily than let's do a gap fill. So it
Mhm.
depends how you look at it and what you're aiming to do. And, like for grammar practice to an extent, based on the fact that repetition also supports memorization. If that's all you're going for, then yeah, by all means, do something familiar. But if you really want to get to the deeper stage more quickly, attention is the first step to that. So, in fact, using something slightly different, but different doesn't necessarily mean complex in terms of the process or the procedure, rather. Yesterday, I took my class to teach. So all our students have to go to a little primary school here, and they teach year three and year four, so like 7, 8, 9 years old. And I go every year, and of course, every year I have different students with me. So the kids, the ones who were in year three last year, year four. So yesterday when I walked in, they're like, "Oh, hello!" I'm like, "Hello." And they said to me, "Oh, are we going to do that? Are we going to make hearts again?" And
Oh.
I'd completely forgotten. And they remembered it because they did lots of pointing and sort of Simon Says-y type games last year. But they also did with one of the students, they made origami hearts because I don't know, I can't remember why. Anyway, they made, or it must have been near Mother's Day or something. They made origami hearts. And then this student taught them how to write, I think it was I love you in Japanese, in the kanji. And then, so they could make one and then write a message and give this to the person that they loved. And
Oh.
one of the little kids had lost their mother and was a refugee and had lost his mother. So we had a little moment there. And he decided that the person he loved most was his teacher, his regular teacher. So we had a big emotional moment. So these little kids yesterday remembered all of that because it was the making and the writing in Japanese, and then this sort of emotional moment about thinking who they loved the most. They didn't have to share it, but they had thought about it.
Mhm.
Of course, yesterday was a bit of a letdown because it was all Simon Says and pointing at things. But I know for next year we need some kind of origami moment or writing because it was different. So they really remembered it. But they didn't remember the students, but they remembered the activity. And
Mm.
that's it. That's what you want a year later. 7 year
Yeah,
olds, 8 year olds going, oh, can we do that again?
nice. Yeah, so
Yeah.
I guess, there's a lot to be said for making the learning experience itself as memorable as
Well, yeah,
possible for
it's
our
triggering the
students as well.
episodic. Yeah,
Yeah.
if you trigger the three types of memory, it's much more complete. And so your attention, shallower processing or superficial processing and the deeper processing, they're more likely to sort of fully engage anyway, if you're already coming at it from different, if you're triggering, like essentially you're triggering the whole memory, more or less, to
Mhm.
simplify. You know?
Mhm. And what do you feel is a particularly memorable lesson that you've delivered?
Oh, I never remember my. I don't know. I think that's a really hard question. I mean, I've been teaching for like 38 years or something now. Is it 38, 39, something like that? I don't know. I think the ones that I remember are the ones. I mean, we remember the bad moments, the big mistakes, or the moments. People telling me about people who've died, that sort of thing,
Mhm.
or like I remember a woman starting to cry in the middle of class. That's like, and it was something in a text, and it was just a completely random thing in the
Mm,
text. It triggered a memory for her, that kind of thing. But it's hard to say because I absolutely love my job, and so if anything's going to stand out, it's more likely to stand out as being something that wasn't so good because there's been so many
mm.
good lessons. I think probably the visualization ones as an approach, shall we say? The visualization lessons are the ones that have produced the most satisfactory um, results, shall we say, and therefore they've got some really strong memories associated with students kind of going, oh, I can do this. The poetry, we talked about poetry last week before.
A couple of weeks ago, I think
Yeah,
it
I've
was.
lost track now. um, and that again, it's for me, it's not so much about the lesson per se, it's the student's reaction. It's when you see a student suddenly going, I can do this.
Mhm.
And I think that those reactions have tended to come from visualization, poetry, and then a lot of hard work on the motivation front with that sort of middle to late teens that can get really demotivated and really sort of, I can't do this, I'm no good at. Yesterday, in fact, when we went to the school, I have one student at the moment who's a big, I can't do this guy, or I'm no good at. And yesterday, as we went into the school, he said to me, I'm really nervous. I'm no good with children. And I looked at him and said, do you know how many times you've told me you're no good at something so far in this course? And do you also know that every single time you've said it, you've turned out to be really good at whatever it was? I kind of laughed. Yesterday, he was the one that the teacher picked, the regular teacher picked out to say he was really good at this.
Oh.
I told him afterwards, I went, you see, you need to stop saying that because it's not true.
Mhm, mhm.
Yeah, I don't know. I think as teachers, we're all different, and therefore we're going to remember, our memories are going to be triggered by different things.
Yeah, yeah.
With me, it's definitely, I mean, emotions trigger memory. And I think that's probably why for me, it's the emotional moments that I remember rather than perhaps, oh, that lesson plan really worked.
Mhm.
It's the students' emotions which then spread to me. Now, maybe we'd need to ask my students what they remember. They remember doing origami hearts.
Yeah. But I mean, I think that's very powerful as well that, you know, and that's what we really want at the end of the day, isn't it? We want our students to be able to remember the experience and then for the kind of the language to be secondary to that. We want them to have a
Yeah.
good experience in the classroom and enjoy the experience and enjoy using the
Yeah.
language.
I know some of my students that I've bumped into in the street, like 10, 20 years later, they can often remember the rap type stuff that we did.
Hmm.
Because I guess that builds, when you rap, you're building in repetition, it's engaging, it's sound, it's movement as well, because I got them upstanding in the whole thing, it's interaction. So it's got the full works, it's got the senses
Hmm.
and the repetition. and processing because they've got to think, they've got to add to it. And, like the one, I had an email recently from a guy saying, oh, I'm still going round going, fish and chips, salt and vinegar crisps. And then I get them to do, imagine they're in a pub ordering a snack or in a cafe ordering a snack, but they have to do it as a wrap. So that's, salt and vinegar crisps, please, gin and tonic.
Awesome.
Well, not gin and tonic anyway. A bit young for that, but still. But yeah, I mean, this guy, well, emailed me, Instagrammed, whatever me the other day. I went, oh, I still remember.
But I guess as well, because that's probably something that they won't have done in their first language in their mainstream
Well,
language
again, so
classes as
it's
well.
different. It stands out
Hmm.
because it's different. Yeah. And there was also an aha moment when they suddenly, that was like the first time they had heard about sentence stress. That it's not
Hmm.
salt and vinegar crisp, please. It was like the poetry chat we had, I was saying about the AA Milne stuff. Yeah, the aha moments, the moments of feeling good. So you've got positive emotions. The amygdalae are part of the memory center in the brain, the hippocampus, the amygdala, and the caudate nucleus are the three main bits. The amygdala are triggered by emotions. One focuses more on negative emotions, the other on positive. We have negative stress in a language learning classroom anyway, because we're making silly sounds and going and things, which is a bit stressful. And we
Hmm.
get challenged and we get asked to do stuff and say stuff in front of our classmates. And, so the negative is automatically triggered. So any positive is counteracting. So instead of having one triggering more than the other, any positive experience, the two are functioning. So that's a bit like trying to run on one leg. It's easier to run on two legs. So it's the same thing. It's easier to remember with the two amygdalae going. So yeah, aha moments, positive experiences, happiness, joy, feeling accepted, feeling safe, feeling part of the group.
You
Mm,
mentioned there about kind of negative experiences, and you said before that we tend to remember the things that didn't go well in our classes much
yeah.
more than the things that went to plan. I mean, do you feel is some amount of negative reaction in the classroom a necessary thing?
No. No, because I say we bring, not we, the students will bring a certain amount of negativity anyway.
Mhm.
Um, Not negativity in the sense of attitude, but there is anxiety. There's a sort of low running level of anxiety for most people. Higher levels, not so much. And then higher levels, you can, if you're talking about horror stories or something, they're going to remember them as well. But no, you don't want to stand out, lessons to stand out for
Mhm.
talking about Auschwitz or whatever. I mean, yeah, do that if you want, but that's too much. For most students, that's going to be too much. Positive. Most of us in our daily lives, especially those who are teaching at the end of the day, the end of the working day, or the end of the school day, which is a significant percentage of our colleagues. In the day, the last thing you want to do is get to the end of the day and have more stress and more kind of on top
Yeah.
of you.
Yeah.
Unless you're really lucky to have a job that you absolutely adore, you still don't want it to be deliberately negative.
Mhm.
You're going to remember your mistakes anyway. I mean, mistakes stand out, the really bad ones. I bet you've made some cracking mistakes in Spanish and then have learnt from them, like what gender is chicken, that kind of thing. These things where you said something rude or whatever by accident. We remember those. So I
Yep,
think,
I'm smiling because I do remember them, yep.
what is it? An ideal on a daily basis with clap and crap and,
Mhm.
sort of things. We were talking about the elections this week, and that was a fun one with the LR thing. And then I said, you better Google what it is with an R, and they did, and went, oh, but then they remember it. So this
Yeah,
is,
yeah.
So that's an example of the bad thing being remembered.
Yeah,
but
yeah,
but yeah,
yeah. Yeah, no, I was thinking in terms of that negativity as well. Like you say, our students will they will have their own reactions to whatever happens in the classroom. So when somebody makes a mistake, for all of our mistakes are really good, don't worry, here's what you need to
yeah,
say
yeah,
instead. That student will still have a particular reaction
yeah.
which may be ingrained because of their previous educational
Mm.
experience and things.
And
Mhm.
another thing, reason for we were talking about this before we started recording, I think, a reason for keeping away from I think well, I mentioned Auschwitz before, things like that, is because we don't know what negative experiences our students have in their life.
Mhm.
If you trigger trauma, you actually deactivate memory.
Mhm.
Um, emotion triggers memory, yes, but trauma causes dissociative memory loss
Mhm.
because the brain clicks into survival and it prioritizes surviving over memorizing. So that's why people forget, or we just sort of blank out trauma.
Mhm.
Um, so it's a bit like switching off the memory rather than switching it on. And because we don't know, people don't say they're talking about trauma, and they may have semi forgotten it anyway. See what I mean? I'm expressing this very badly. I'm trying to go around the subject, I don't want to traumatize anybody. Um, that's another reason for
Yeah.
keeping away
Yeah.
from it. I mean, there's all parsnips and that, yeah, fine. But we do. This is a world now where my next door neighbors are Ukrainian kind of thing, and that is true. Not
Mm.
so certain topics best to keep them off the table. Really,
Yeah.
I think.
Or kind of have a very candid discussion with the students of what they feel comfortable talking about.
Well, yeah, I mean, but all that kind of thing has to come from them. I'm not going to go into a class, I'm sorry, and say, let's talk about war. If
Mm.
they bring it up, and this is, I have Japanese, but they're not like I know one of them didn't hasn't lived in Japan all his life, so there's certain things I'm not going to mention. Um, his mother's not from Japan, it's from somewhere else, so there's certain things I'm just not going to go there. But if it comes from the students,
Mhm.
okay.
Mm. Yeah.
Um, I mean, that's true for a lot of topics, though, because there's all kinds of stuff. I remember just, the old let's talk about our family lesson, and somebody saying, saying, oh, how's your brother? And he's dead. What?
Yeah.
So, yeah, certainly, probably, I'm remembering that lesson now.
But then it's like you said with the woman who unfortunately burst into tears
Hmm.
because of something, and there was probably nothing in that text that made you think, "Oh, this
No,
could be
it
triggering."
was something to do. I can't remember. It was something to do with family. It was also about families, actually. And I remember it because I remember why. I don't remember the text, but I remember why she was crying. It was something related to families. So maybe if we're talking about families. Yeah.
We'll
What about you? What
add
do
an
you
F to
remember?
the
Do you
parsnips.
have? Yeah, exactly. Parsnips. Parsnips. What about you? Do you have a particular positive memory of any particular class or group or?
Yeah, but again, like you say, not for kind of one specific lesson. Like there are some classes that had a really wonderful vibe
Yeah,
throughout the year, and then there were other classes where there were moments that were really special. But I
yeah.
think again, it sad to say, but it's not because of the lesson I was teaching. It was, something else completely. Um,
Then we're not setting out to learn. We learn by accident. We do learn in class, but we learn kind of by accident. It's not the intention. So
mhm.
we have a completely different experience of it. So that's what I was saying before. I think we'd need to ask our students. I
Mhm.
mean, memory is it's a complex area. It's an area that as yet is not completely known to us.
Well, no.
It's, space is not necessarily the final frontier. The human brain may well be. Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's lots of activities. Perhaps next week even we could talk about activities specifically designed to maximize memory functioning. I mentioned the caudate nucleus there in passing, but we haven't dived into it. Literally would be unpleasant, but you know what I mean.
Nice, excellent. I am just before we finish because I've got the book here because I was using it for to remind me.
Oh,
There is stuff about the brain in
yeah.
here, and yep,
Section
sounds
A.
like a good topic for next week to give some more practical lesson ideas.
Yeah, I think we could because there's a lot still to talk about. There's the whole hippocampus and caudate nucleus as well. Is that the thing?
Isn't there always so much more
I
to talk about?
know, I know. We will come back
But
to everything, but I think maybe let's do memory next week.
yeah, my coffee cup is
Activity.
empty,
So
so
activities,
we'll be.
activities next week, activities.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, have a fabulous week, and we'll be back again next Tuesday with some practical ideas for the memory. Catch you.
Yay. Bye.